Hey everyone, Kashira here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to talk about self-care for entrepreneurs and some practices that I recommend implementing to prevent, if you can, and if not, beat overwhelm. So if this is something that you are interested in learning about, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and keep on watching. So self-care for entrepreneurs is huge. Like whenever I do Q&As or interviews or things like that, like this question always comes up, which is how do you manage overwhelm? What kind of self-care do you do? How do you take time for yourself? And I get it, because being a business owner is a lot, especially if you are the first in your family. You don't really have a support system. Maybe you're doing it by yourself, right? Like I was a solopreneur. It can be a lot, let alone if you have a family, if you have a job, if you have all of these other things pulling on you. And even if you don't even have those other things pulling on you, because I don't have a job or kids right now, and I still feel like it's a lot. So I want to talk to you about some of the things that I've learned over the years around creating self-care and what that looks like as a business owner. And no, this is not the video where I'm going to tell you to take bubble baths and go to the spa. While I love both of those things and they're great, they are not going to be the end all be all if you don't do some of the other things I'm going to talk about. So let's jump into the first thing, which is actually having set working hours. Now, if you are side hustling, this is probably going to be difficult, but when you go full-time in your business, this is so important. This is something that I struggled with a lot when I transitioned from side hustling to being full-time. I did not leave that workaholic grind with me. So when I was side hustling, because I had to, I would work all evening into the night. I'd work on my lunch break, sometimes in the morning, and all weekend. And so, especially when I was ramping up to quit my job, when I was really trying to like make some things happen, I did not take any time for myself, and I don't recommend that. But I was just like ready to leave my job. So I was like, I don't need to go to happy hour. I don't need to go to brunch. I don't need this. I don't need that. To the point where all of my travel was work. Like, oh, I'm going to speak. I'm going to this conference. Like, it was just like a lot, right? So I did not leave that behind. When I went full time, I kept working as if I had a job. So I would work all day long, from when I woke up and literally late into the night, sometimes middle of the night. Like there was no separation between work and my real life. And even the first few months before I had my office, I really struggled with separating it. Even though I had dedicated office space in my house, I'd work in my bed, I'd work on the couch. Like it was bad. So if you are full-time, I highly recommend that you have dedicated business hours. So if you want, your business hours can be 8 to 5, 8 to 4, 8 to 3, 8 to 12, because who says you have to work 8 to 10 hours a day? Like that is a whole other thing. Maybe you are not a morning person. Your business hours could be 12 to 6, 12 to 7, right? Maybe you only work, I know people who only work Monday through Wednesday, and that's really it. Like that is completely up to you. I am not here to debate on what your working hours should be, but you need to figure that out. In fact, one of the things that I work with my clients on in the founder circle when it comes to their pricing is one of the first steps before we even price their program is how many hours do you actually want to work in a week? And we start there. We don't just say, oh, in order to make this amount, you have to work these many hours. It's like, no, how many hours do you want to work? Because that's going to help us to set their hourly rate based on their revenue goal. So what are your business hours, and honoring those business hours, right? So if somebody wants to have a meeting with you at 7 o'clock, but you're not working at 7 o'clock, then 9 times out of 10 that answer is going to be no. Now, are there exceptions? Absolutely. But should exceptions become your norm, where you're just always saying yes to outside of your office hours things for the heck of it? No. Like you need to set those business hours, which goes into point number 2. You need to set and enforce boundaries with your customers, your clients, your partners, your investors, your vendors, like whoever. you need to enforce boundaries. So first of all, you need to set the boundary, because you can't be mad if your clients are texting you at 11 o'clock at night if you never said that they couldn't. If you sold your clients 24/7 access, then that's what they're expecting, 24/7 access. You did not set the expectation. You have to be very clear on that, right? Like letting people know, like, these are my business hours. This is when I'm in the office. This is when I'm out of the office. This is when I'm on vacation, right? So setting those boundaries. And even one of my good friends, I love that she does it. She has an out of office that automatically turns on like in the evenings and on the weekends. So if you email her at 5:30, you're getting it out of the office that says, thanks for writing. Our business hours are 9 to 5. We will get back to you on the next business day. Like, I love that. So you first need to set the boundaries, right? So if you are a coach or a consultant like me, then you probably have contracts. So you want to put that in your contract. So not only when can people reach out from you, but then what's the expected turnaround time? So when I was doing private coaching, I told my clients, while you can send emails whenever you want, because I know you're working at different points, please know that it can take me anywhere from 24 to 72 business hours to get back to you. And I always use business hours because I don't want people to think that that includes the weekend. So if you email on Friday, if I'm slammed on Monday, like, I might not get back to you until Tuesday. And like, that's just something that I set. And I never had anyone have an issue. I never had anyone complain, fuss, nobody ever said like, you never got back to me or you didn't get back to me fast enough, right? So what I'm not suggesting here though is to be irresponsible and to take 2 weeks to get back to your paying clients, right? Like, that's not a thing. But you also do not need to be glued to your phone. So you have to set the boundaries and then you have to enforce them. So if you do get a client that emails at 10 but then they get an attitude at 11 and say, oh, you didn't reply back, you have to like remind them the next day when you get in the office, not at 11 o'clock but the next day, hey, just want to reiterate, in your contract and in our onboarding call, we talked about how it could take me 24 to 72 hours to get back to you, not to mention my business hours are 9 to 4. So, that I wasn't going to reply to you in an hour at 10 p.m., right? So just enforcing those boundaries and knowing that this applies to everybody. So notice I mentioned clients, business partners, investors, vendors, customers, like everybody, because I know people who have corporate clients that run into these boundaries issues too. We have to treat people how to treat us, in a sense of we have to not only tell them what we prefer and how we operate, but we have to then enforce that. You can't tell somebody, oh, I'm only in the office 9 to 4 and like blah blah blah, you'll hear from me whenever you hear from me, but then you're always replying back at night. You're always speedy with the thumbs, like getting right back, because then if something happens where maybe you're in an all-day conference or you're just really busy or you're on vacation, when you can't do this because you already set that precedent, now it's expected. So set and enforce those boundaries. And I have so many clients that come to me that do not do this, and they have such a hard time with it. So if you have a hard time with this boundary setting, I challenge you to think about this. You can meditate on it, journal on it, pray about it, whatever works for you. Why do I feel, where does the belief come from that I have to be available 24/7 to be effective? The question is, where does the belief come from that I have to be available 24/7 to be effective? Because that's coming from a limiting belief somewhere. There's some kind of, it might even be like a lack mentality where you feel like you're not worth the price you're charging because you're not always available. Like, I don't know, like everybody is different, but dissect where it comes from so you can get it up out of here. So that is that on that. Okay. The next thing I would challenge you to do is to take intermittent breaks throughout the day. So for me in particular, a lot of my overwhelm has come from just grinding nonstop, like days on end, like barely any breaks up to eat. And I might even have a working lunch and dinner, like doing that. So I actually recommend taking intermittent breaks. This is something that I learned about actually through Google. If you don't know, I am a Grow with Google digital coach. I host free workshops on digital skills training every month, and it's always linked in the description. So I don't know if you look at the description box, but under the Connect with Me section, I have a link. It says register for my free Google webinar, so you can check those out. But we have a training called How to Optimize Your Energy, and we talk about how our body functions on this rhythmic cycle where we need to reset every 90 to 120 minutes. If you study the Pomodoro method, you've heard about that before, but from a psychological and physiological perspective, like, this is a real thing. Our bodies need to reset. So taking intermittent breaks every 90 to 120 minutes will tremendously help your energy levels. And one thing I will tell you, because you might be thinking like, that's a lot of breaks throughout the day. you don't have to take very long breaks. So one thing we teach is that it's not about the length of the break, it's about the quality of the break. So you can take a full hour break, but if you're still doing business stuff during that break, where you're still checking email or checking social media, like that might not be a quality break. And I bring up social media because for a lot of people, social media is a part of our work. It could be a part of your 9 to 5, or it's a part of your business. And so social media, especially for me, it's associated with work. It's not associated with downtime except for Pinterest, right? So starting to rethink that. So when you take a break, even if it can only be for 5 minutes, get up and take a walk, or listen to your favorite song, or call up a friend, watch TV, right? Like something that has literally nothing to do with your work, like not even closely related to your work. If you read a book for pleasure, not a book that's teaching you more business stuff or whatever you need. Like taking quality breaks will help to refresh your energy and just give you a nice reset. So the next thing I would recommend to manage overwhelm is actually detoxing your timeline. I talk to y'all about this a lot. Like, you need to be more intentional, because you might be on social media all day, around who you follow. So there's people who post content that make you feel bad, sad, negative, not enough, guilty, this and that. Unfollow, even if they're your friends and family. One thing I will tell you is I feel like we associate unfollowing with, oh, I don't like them, we got beef, this and that. And it really don't have to be that deep. It could be, I adore you as a person, but I can't take your content right now. It can even be like from a place of maybe you do adore them, but maybe you have imposter syndrome right now. Maybe you're really struggling with your identity and who you are, and you see certain people and you're like, dang, I wish that was me and this and that. And do you still need to work through your issues with that? Because, the envy and things like that? Yes, you do. But does that mean that you have to force yourself to deal with this every day? No, you absolutely don't. Why make your healing journey harder than it needs to be, right? That's like being on a weight loss journey and committing to eating clean and eating plant-based, but then going and buying McDonald's every day just to sit there and look at it. It's like, I can't eat it, but I'm gonna just look at it. Like, that doesn't make sense. So detox your timeline. I follow next to nobody on Instagram, and the people I do follow, I don't follow many competitors at all. I follow a lot of self-care accounts, vlogger accounts, meme accounts, like inspiration accounts, because when I'm looking at my timeline, when I am on social media, I don't want to even run the risk of negative feelings. There are so many different things that can cause us to feel negative in the world anyway. The last thing I need is that something I actually have control over, my timeline, to also feed into this. So do not feel bad about this. Do not feel bad for needing to purify your space. If you have negative relatives and negative friends, unfollow, unfriend. I know Facebook has an unfollow feature where you can still be Facebook friends with somebody, but you'd never see them on your feed unless you refollow them. Instagram has a mute feature for stories and posts. So if you are worried about, maybe it's a good friend who, would take this personally, you can mute them. Twitter has a mute feature. There's the block button. There's so many different things, right? So you have a lot of options, but detox your timeline. The last thing you need when you're already overwhelmed and feeling not enough is to see social media and being like, oh my God, look at what everybody else is doing. I'm just not doing enough, and that's going to make you feel even worse. The next step is having a strong morning and nighttime routine. And notice with all of these steps, these are things that are going to be constant practices and ongoing efforts for you, because instead of trying to treat overwhelm when it comes, my goal is to help you with really preventing it altogether. Now, a note on morning and nighttime routines. First of all, your routine does not have to look like anybody else's or some of the fancy YouTube vloggers that I love watching. I love a good morning routine video, but I'm going to be honest, my routine is not going to look like that, and that's okay. The second thing is your routine is going to change and adapt because you're learning yourself. If you do not have if you do not have a morning or nighttime routine already, that means you're going to have to try things out and see what works, right? Trying and seeing what works for you, and being, I would say when you're getting started, try to be as flexible as you can. So instead of being so rigid, like, okay, I have to read a book on spirituality for 5 minutes and then I have to get on my bike for 5 minutes and this and that, just say, my morning routine consists of at least 10 minutes of movement and at least 10 minutes of, pouring into myself through reading, and at least 10 minutes of writing. What's the difference between that and what I said before? you're more fluid. So 10 minutes of movement doesn't mean you have to get on the Peloton. It could mean you're taking a walk, you're dancing around your house, you're doing yoga. 10 minutes of pouring into myself through reading could mean I could read anything I want to read. I could read the Bible, I could read a book on spirituality, I can read a book on personal development, I can X, Y, and Z. So giving yourself some flexibility to just kind of play around with the specifics of what you want to do while just having a basic outline of the morning. So some of the morning things I like to do, one, drinking a full cup of water, preferably with the lemon, but I will be honest, sometimes I'm too lazy to get the lemon, so I just make sure I drink a full cup of water. I make sure I meditate and I do some deep breathing, and I do some kind of reading in the morning as well. Me and my morning journaling have not been doing that great lately, but the other three have been constant and have been really, really helpful for me, along with setting an intention for the day. So I always set an intention for the day. I always have an affirmation for the day. But one other part of my morning routine that I really appreciate, though, is listening to Audible in my car when I'm driving to the office. My drive is only 12 minutes, but I'll play an audio book versus listening to music. And that's really just, I don't know, it just really helps me to just feel really good going into the day. Like, I can't explain why. Maybe it's the book I'm listening to, which is Power of Now, which I've already read, but I'm listening to it now to fully digest it. But I don't know, I just feel really, really good afterwards. So, you know, maybe you can play an audio book while you're getting ready, and you can even substitute that for the reading. So if you don't want to actually sit and read a book, because I'll read on my Kindle app in bed when I wake up, but if you don't want to read, you can do Audible or you can do a podcast. So, and there's actually a lot of audio books on YouTube as well, so check that out. Then nighttime routine. Nighttime routine is so important because you need to release the day. So I really like doing restorative yoga at night. I'm not going to say I do it every day. That's a full lie. I would love to do it every day. Right now I do it 2 to 3 times a week. I definitely journal at night. I read at night, and I always meditate at night. So that's my nighttime routine. And then at night, I do like to drink something warm, but I do it about 2 hours before bed because I hate having to get up and go to the restroom. So I'll either drink some kind of tea, like a sleep tea, a bedtime tea, or I'll drink warm water with calm powder in it. So if you just Google calm powder, they sell it at like GNC and on Amazon. It's basically a magnesium supplement, which just helps you to relax, unwind. It helps you to sleep better. It's not a sleep drink though. You don't have to drink it at night. I just prefer to, because I also noticed that it helps me to like alleviate headaches and stuff. So anyway, I drink some kind of warm drink as well. So having a solid morning and nighttime routine is going to really help you. And be gentle with yourself with these routines. It takes a while to build up a routine, so just be gentle with yourself as you're doing it. The next thing that I would recommend for your self-care is to get help or get some kind of support. So there's 2 buckets I'm going to talk about. The first bucket is getting some kind of like mental, emotional support in the form of a therapist and or a life coach. So with a therapist, definitely check to see if your insurance will cover it. If not, I know that there are a lot of options now, especially post, not post-COVID, but pre-COVID. Because of COVID, there are a lot of low cost and free counseling sessions that are typically available locally, so check that out. I know there's a bunch of apps too. I haven't used the apps, but I know there are apps that help with therapy. But then also life coaching, if you can afford it, definitely consider getting a life coach as well. And many of them focus on different things like inner child healing and just general happiness and peace and things like that. So definitely consider getting some support there. And then if you are a business owner, which I would assume because you're watching a Self-Care for Entrepreneurs video, consider getting some kind of business coach. And I do have a video coming for you all, if it's not up already, on how to hire a business coach. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss that. But for me, I've had a business coach consistently since 2016. And it's like the best thing ever because I now don't have to figure it all out myself. I don't have to do it alone. Now, are there still things I have to just figure out as an entrepreneur? Absolutely. But it's nice knowing that I have a place to go to get support. And plus, all of my coaches for business, they're all mastermind and group coaching experiences. So there is a coach and like support coaches, but then there's also like my community. So I'm in one mastermind where we have a Voxer group chat. All of them have like Facebook support groups. Some of the people in my mastermind groups I've networked with, and I have their phone number, and we text and we talk and we check on each other. And I will say, if you are in a group program, this is not the time to be shy. Like, don't wait for somebody to come up to you and say, hey, be my friend, or hey, let's connect. If you see somebody in like your Facebook support group that you think you might vibe with, like, send them a DM, like chat with them, ask if they'd be willing to have a 15-minute coffee chat with you or a phone call with you, and just really vibe from there. Like, all of the women that I'm connected with, like personally from my group programs, I've reached out, and I'm introverted and I don't like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not extroverted at all, but I reached out to them and I've built those relationships. So I would definitely say, you know, reach out and start to make friends through those programs. And the best part about it, and I haven't had a bad experience with this, but the best part about it is people who are in paid group programs and paid masterminds, they're already like in the same like level as you. And I'm fortunate with people in my programs who are like ahead of me in business. Some of them are like a little behind, and like we help each other. And when I say ahead and behind, I'm just talking about in terms of like experience or revenue and things like that. But we're all equally smart and talented and dedicated. So that's what I mean. But that's my favorite part about group programs. People really shy away from that. And I'm like, private coaching is not what you think it is. Just because you have one-on-one access does not mean you're gonna get like better results or have a better experience. I actually think that group is better because I learned so much just from the conversations alone and the questions my peers bring up that I wasn't even thinking about that's now on my radar. So that actually helps to ease the overwhelm, because if I ever run into a problem, a roadblock, an issue, I don't have to sit here in it and figure it out. I can go to my group chat. I can go to my Facebook groups. I can go to my text messages and reach out and get that support. And in my coaching program, the Founder Circle, it's a group program as well, where I encourage people to leverage our group for that. And my clients have even started to have their own Zoom calls with each other, and they text and they talk. And so it's beautiful that I've been able to create the same experiences that I have benefited from. And by the way, if you want more information on my program, the Founder Circle, the link is in the description box always. So thepowercollective.co/apply or thefoundercircle.com, whichever is easiest for you to remember to check it out. And then the last thing I would suggest is to start creating your own self-care weekly routine. So I recommend, in addition to all of your daily practices, that you have at least one day of the week where you dedicate a few hours, like consecutively, towards self-care. And that's where you're really pouring into yourself. That's where you are maybe just sitting quietly with yourself. You're praying, you're meditating, you're journaling, you're just pouring into yourself however you need to, getting ready for the week. I typically do this on Sundays, but you can do this whenever you want. And so for me, that looks like longer meditation, longer journaling, setting my intentions. That looks like maybe doing a face mask, washing my hair, deep conditioning my hair. I'm just putting like extra love. Like, I'm doing the things that I don't have time for throughout the week. Like, I don't have time to do face masks for 30 minutes throughout the week, or to deep condition my hair. I'll even though I go to the nail shop, I'll still like soak my feet in like the little foot spa. You know, I'll light candles, I'll like watch a movie, I'll make my infused water with my cucumbers and my lemon. And I just really just take time for myself. And so everybody can do this however you want to. And I do have my days where I go and get massages, which are non-negotiables because I carry a lot of stress in my shoulders, and I get my nails done. But those things are like additive. They're not the things that really help me to constantly refresh. So I recommend taking time to just do a constant like weekly refresh, to just pour into yourself. And the big thing here is spending time with yourself. So it doesn't have to be super beauty focused like mask and things like that. I'm just telling you what I do. I know some people do like yoni steams, which I've done a couple times. I have to get better with it. It's just a lot of work to get it set up for me, but I definitely love doing it. I do feel like it's a really like intimate form of self-care. If you don't know what a yoni steam is, search it on YouTube. There's a ton of videos. But figuring out what makes the most sense for you. The second half of that is having like your self-care toolkit. So if you do still get overwhelmed or burnt out, coming up with your own toolkit for recovery. So for me, I have a page in my self-care planner, my wellness planner, where I just write down all of the things that helps me to bounce back and to feel better. And it might be a list of 15 things, and I don't do all 15 every time, but it just what the toolkit allows me to do is to just be reminded of what techniques actually work and to pick what makes sense for me in that moment. So that might be, getting a massage, that might be watching a funny movie or calling up a certain friend or things like that. So creating a self-care toolkit as well to help you to bounce back. Think of it as like, when you get sick, you have like a list of things you do to recover. You might take elderberry and take vitamin C and then take this medicine, drink this tea, sleep for this amount of time. Have that same kind of routine for when you're burned out and overwhelmed. If you have any, first of all, suggestions for other people on how you combat overwhelm, put them in the comments so that we can idea share and get more ideas going. But also, if you have any questions, let me know down in the chat as well. If you're not subscribed to this channel already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video. And with that, I'll talk to you all in the next one. Bye, guys.